Happy Friday morning, Caleb. It is Friday the 3rd of April already. Oof. Yeah, April 3rd. Oh boy. Where does the year go? Anyways. Got a small can today because, I don't know why. But anyway, cheers. So, basically got the my monthly film up last month, barely. Got it rendered and uploaded finally, like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night on Friday local time. It was pushing it right to the edge, and this is because of my bad planning. Originally, I had planned to film something with my wife as the actor, and schedules didn't line up, so she had ended up doing a lot of extra shifts at work, and her days off were the days that I worked, so you know how it goes. Anyways, that's life, and you learn to deal with it somehow. But so what I did was I took some of the footage that we'd shot back in 2001, I believe, and tried to repurpose it. And, it didn't really work that well. As you kind of mentioned when you commented on the video, is more vibes than anything. And I think, part of it was decent looking. Definitely learned some things on that one. Number one was really high contrast footage like that, where you've got really dark, in this case, car interiors with really bright lights going on in the outside. Really hard to fit that into the Rec 709 space. So I abandoned my Rec 709 color grade there and ended up doing it in Rec 2020, which worked a lot better in Rec 2020 HDR space. So, of course, when I uploaded it to YouTube, it completely ignored that. But the YouTube Rec 2020 to Rec 709 conversion, while not amazing, is fine. I ended up watching it off of YouTube on my LG OLED, and it looked close, somewhat similar to what I see on my now sadly discontinued 6K Pro Display XDR display here, Macintosh display. But yeah, HDR, it turns out, after nearly a decade in the market, is still just a wild, wild west of nobody can agree on any kind of interoperability. We have standards, we have HDR 10, 10 plus, we have Dolby Vision, we have all these fantastic, in theory, ways to work with HDR, but it seems like nobody can actually display it properly, so I'm at a loss. Anyway, that was not the most important thing, though, that I learned with this project. I would say that the most interesting thing I learned was noise reduction in Resolve. And by that I mean video noise reduction, not audio. All the audio was replaced. All the audio in that clip is, stuff I got from freesound.org or stuff I manipulated off of clips of weird people on the internet. So, but what I did learn was that in the old days, you'd use if you had Resolve Studio and you didn't want to pay for an extra plugin like Neat Video, which I've never seen a compelling argument for Neat Video. In practice, it seems to do just as bad as every other noise reduction scheme I've ever used, in that it strips out a lot of detail and does weird sharpening stuff. But anyways, opinions vary. Some people love that plugin. I'm not going to pay for it. But anyway, so I had Resolve Studio for many years, and when I had to do noise reduction, it was usually a combination of they've got temporal noise reduction and spatial noise reduction. So temporal looks at, you can tell it how many frames between 1 and 5, I think, of frames to compare before and after each frame that it's doing the actual noise reduction on. And in theory, what it should do is any movement between frames at the pixel level is going to assume to be noise. And in theory, that should like take out noise really well, because if you're averaging pixels, any pixel that is actual image data, in theory, should stay relatively the same across several frames, and anything that's noise should randomly change, right? So, like I said, in theory, it works great. In practice, not super great. So, in the old days, what I would do, and what I had come to think was, best practices from what I see on the interwebs, is do your temporal noise reduction, try to get as much as you can there, and then move to spatial. You add the spatial, which is in the same either pane, or you can do it as an OFX plugin. And spatial noise reduction is more visually destructive, because it's just taking at that frame, averaging pixels, right? It's blurring it. Essentially, that's what all noise reduction is doing, is blurring your image. So, you want to do as little as possible. You can turn on a mode to where you can kind of do a comparison where it's like instead of your image, you see like a white frame, and then you see like noise appear, which is like a difference. You're looking at it as if you had like the same frame placed over itself with a difference blend mode, and you were just seeing what is changing. And the more gritty kind of image comes up, the more noise you're taking out. That's all the noise anyway. All that to say, I should be displaying this on the screen, right? Showing you this. Too lazy. Anyways, so yeah, all this was to say that in the old days, noise reduction in Resolve was pretty primitive, right? And so my personal rule of thumb was use noise reduction as infrequently as possible and just as a last resort. But anyway, this footage of you driving around that is in my latest film is was real noisy, especially after I cranked the shadows up to try and get some image detail, because it was very, very dark. Because what happened was we shot that back in the day on my Sigma FP with a Voigtlander 40mm f1.2 wide open. So nice, and tons of bokeh, looks really lovely and stuff. But so we're shooting full frame on that. It's using the full frame and exporting a raw signal over HDMI to an Atomos Ninja 5, recording it as ProRes RAW. So in theory, pretty good, but you know how raw video is going to look extra noisy because you're not doing any in-camera noise reduction. And generally, I don't mind that. It's fine. And if I do noise reduction, I'll just usually do chroma noise reduction and leave the luminance in, as luminance usually looks like grain, film grain. But in this case, it looked pretty bad. So what I did was a little bit different than my normal noise reduction schemes in the past, where I would do a noise reduction at the beginning, like in the first node, and then do all my grading after that. Instead, what I did was, since it started out as 709 and then got converted midway to Rec 2020, 709 looks more crushed, whereas 2020 looks more noisy because you're seeing more shadow detail. So it looked pretty noisy. And what I did was, after I got my look all how I wanted it, what I do is I do a shot-by-shot corrections, and then I do a timeline level final look, which is usually a mix of the Resolve Studio Film Look Creator, which I don't use their built-in film grain, because I usually don't denoise. I just let the natural noise look like film sort of grain. Kind of works. And also, I've noticed the film grain just never shows up properly on YouTube anyway after all the compression. But this time what I did was I did my final look, which is my normal kind of make the saturation and the color contrast look how I wanted it to. And then everything looked nice except for just noisy as hell, really gritty. So it's like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. So I played around with the noise reduction and started out how I usually would with temporal and spatial. And then in the spatial noise reduction, it's got, your drop down for faster, better, enhanced. And then it's got a new to me, I've never played with it, mode called AI. I think it's called AI noise or AI UltraNR. AI UltraNR for noise reduction. And I was like, all right, I'll play with that. And at first I was like, oh, this is awful. It's real artifacty and stuff. But then I found if you actually don't use temporal or spatial, obviously not using spatial because the AI UltraNR kind of replaces spatial. So turn off your temporal noise reduction, just leave it default 0. And then just do all your noise reduction with the NR spatial, and it worked pretty good. Like once it did all its noise reduction, it was like too clean. It was like stripped looking, but it didn't really crater the detail that badly. So I'm like, oh, interesting. I'm kind of liking this, right? So then what I did was after, so I had at the timeline level, I had my node for film look creator, which is all dialed in the way I wanted. And then I had my next node was a little bit of lume versus sat, luminance versus saturation. I play with the curve on that a little bit just to desaturate the blacks and pump up the lighter colors because a lot of it was like bright lights and stuff. And then I do a little bit of detail, use the mid-tone detail in that node, kind of make it look a little more crisp. And then, it was real noisy. And so then I did my next node, the noise reduction. And then the last node I just used the Resolve Studio OFX film grain. And the film grain in that is basically the same thing as you're getting in the film look creator, except for it's got more controls. You can do shadows, midtones, highlights, tune it a little bit. So I gave it more in the highlights, less in the shadows, kind of what I think of as more of a realistic film grain look. And I cranked it up a bit because I'm like, you're going to have a ton of grain to even show up on YouTube. I thought to myself, well, this isn't really going to even show up well if I compress it a lot. So I exported that as ProRes. And the render took a bit of time because with the noise reduction and then the grain addition on my M1 Max, stock M1 Max base model Mac Studio from a couple years back now, it was running at about 2.5 frames a second for the 4K footage. But it was 4K at 2:39 ratio. I cropped it nice and thin for extra cinematicness, right? And so then once it got done rendering out to ProRes, it was a pretty big file, about 32 gigs. So then I had to upload that, which took a while on my crappy internet. And after all that, I was surprised at how decent it looked on YouTube, like after it got through all that. So what did we learn? Noise reduction. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe the AI is useful for something. I don't know how much AI is actually in this noise reduction algorithm, but obviously something kind of worked. I mean, it's not without its weird. There was a couple spots that I definitely noticed some weird artifacts and some weird anomalies, but at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? It looked okay. It's not doing crazy good for views, but none of my stuff really gets many views at this point, so it's fine. That was my week. That's what I learned. Next time I think next month I'm gonna again try to just do a project where it's just me, so that I don't have to worry about other people's schedules and stuff. And I won't be afraid of low light, nighttime shooting, high ISO. The FP is a good camera. I still have it in that it's got dual base ISO. So 3200 is actually the base ISO of its second ISO gain stage, and that's actually what I'm doing on my SL2 right now. I'm recording it at 3200 ISO, which is also the base of its second gain stage as ProRes raw out to an Atomos. And actually I don't denoise this because this looks pretty good because I've got you know, pretty decent lighting in here. And with this much light, at 3200 ISO, and then finishing it as Rec. 709, the noise is barely visible, but I may play with noise reduction on this as well. Who knows? I'll let you know. But anyway, what I do? I watched a library DVD of Uncle Boonmee, Who Can Remember His Past Lives. I don't have the case up here with me at the moment. I show you that. Good movie. You should check it out. It's slow cinema, but with some like supernatural stuff. It's not really a horror film, but there's definitely some supernatural weirdness. It was good. I liked it. Good movie. So anyways, don't be afraid to play with noise reduction. It might be a little bit more taxing on your M1 MacBook Air. Maybe time to upgrade, but yeah, never know till you try it. Anyways, have a good weekend, and I will catch y'all on the flip side. Stay thirsty, my friends.